The Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, is reportedly considering bringing in compulsory voting, which would be one of the biggest changes to British democracy in decades. Although the Labour Party's current position is not to do this, proposals are reportedly backed by some senior figures close to the government, which would see people who chose not to vote fined £10 unless they had a valid reason for staying away from the ballot box. In Australia, compulsory voting has existed for more than a century, with non-voters facing a penalty of $20 Australian if they fail to vote without a valid excuse, which has led to consistent turnouts of over 90%, compared to just under 60% for the UK in 2024. Is the concept of compulsory voting fundamentally un-British and undemocratic? Is an expression of indifference as much a democratic right as the right to vote itself? Although £10 may seem a small sum, how much taxpayers' money would the state be willing to spend on implementing and enforcing this rule? Well, I'm joined now by the Senior Research Fellow in Democracy and Politics at the IPPR, Dr. Sofia Ropek, Hewson. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Australia's had this for some time. There's still 10% who resolutely refuse to vote. But isn't it a democratic right to say, I think they're all useless, I don't want to participate?
Do you think it's a democratic right not to pay taxes or not to send children to school or obey other laws? I think we have to pay taxes. We have to do we have to send children to school. We have to follow various kinds of laws. I think that voting is one of the most basic requirements of a citizen. I think what you're talking about there, the right of people to reject the parties on offer is really important. Which is why I think if you implemented compulsory voting, I think you would need to have a none-of-the-above option. You need to have an option to reject the parties on offer.
But people have
and that's what they have.
A none-of-the-above by staying at home. They've already got it. And you're making them... It's very rare to make people do something in a democracy unless you're in a time of war or you've got a COVID-like problem. That paying taxes is something that is done because the state needs money. It's not the same as making people vote. They don't have to participate in civic activity.
Do you think that the state needs the participation of more people to make political democracy legitimate? I mean, I think if less than 60% of people in the UK voted in the last general election, does that make our political democracy robust and legitimate? I think
you're blaming the wrong people. I think the reason the voting goes down is because politicians aren't inspiring people to vote. It's a failure of the political class. It's not a failure of the people to vote.
I don't think that compulsory voting is a silver bullet. I don't think it will solve the problem of really low political trust in the UK. But I do think it's an important part of the problem. I think we've treated people in this country like consumers rather than citizens for a really long time. And I think we need a new relationship between the citizen and the state that involves us asking more of the state, but also the state asking more of us. And I think that kind of deeper, more mutual relationship between the citizen and the state is really important. And at the moment, we don't have that.
But the state is there, or the political parties are there to inspire people to get involved and turn out to vote. If they have all failed, then they don't get any more legitimacy because people have been forced to vote. There's still this feeling of failure. It just covers it up. It's about covering up embarrassment for the politicians, isn't it, who have failed to make people interested in what they're doing.
I don't think so. I think compulsory voting is a moral argument about the kind of country that we want, a country where everyone takes part. I think we want people to take part. At the moment, wealthy people and white people and people who own homes are much more likely to vote in elections, which means that politicians are incentivised to develop policies that respond to them. I think we want policies that respond to more people, to people across the country who aren't voting because they have no trust that politicians can affect change. And I think compulsory voting is part of that.
When you have things that people care about, like the Scottish referendum and Brexit, you get higher turnouts. More people go out to vote when it matters to them.
Do you not think that people should care more about democracy? Do you not want more people to vote?
I think it's entirely up to them, and I think it's up to me as a politician to make them interested.
You know, John Stuart Mill said that voting shouldn't be optional, that it was about duty and the public good. Do you not think that there's something very, very deep and important about the relationship between the citizen and the state that isn't about a transactional relationship, but it's about contribution and about being in the country and shaping the country together. And
I think the citizens are entirely entitled to withdraw as far from the state as possible.
So you think a vote is like private property? It's like something you own that you can choose to withhold if you don't like.
If you don't want to do it, that's right.
I don't agree with that, and I think
it's your choice.
And most people in the country don't agree with you. 52%, I think, of people support compulsory voting in comparison with 25% of people who oppose it.
I'd be surprised if those sorts of opinion polls. When you do opinion polling on ID cards, everybody says they're in favour of them until you have a policy for it, at which point the polling changes fundamentally. I think it's the same thing. People don't like compulsion. The
It's
English
very easy
don't
to reject
beat
polling that you don't like.
Yes, but all the evidence is, if you look at ID card
The
polling,
evidence is that
people
are actually
change
in
their
favour
minds.
of compulsory voting.
Well, before there's been a serious proposal for it.
It leads to more participation, it leads to more responsive politicians, and it leads to more inclusion.
It's hardly made any change in elections in Australia.
What has made no change?
Compulsory voting.
Do you think there's no difference between 60% and 90%? That's quite a big difference in turnout.
That people tend to vote in the same way as people already vote.
Actually, there's quite a difference in the way that people vote. Research in the UK shows that you would see a shift away from reform,
in Australia,
a shift away from Greens, and you would see a shift towards Labour, towards Conservatives, towards Plaid and Lib Dem. And research outside the UK shows that actually compulsory voting
benefits
pluralism.
But not in Australia. It seems to have had very little difference.
Well, recent research
in this country, what you want...
shows that it benefits pluralism. I wanted to finish my sentence.
What you want to do is basically support the blob. So you don't like any parties that threaten the blob?
No, it's not. It's not about.
So you force people to do a donkey vote?
No, it's not. It's not about the blob. It's about a more pluralist politics.
Surely people should be...
Are you not interested in people being able to vote for no political party or for a range of political parties?
I'm in favour of people making choices for themselves rather than being told what to do by the state and fined if they don't do it. That is a fundamentally foreign system to the UK.
You know,
fundamentally against the common law.
You know, in Australia, only 5% of people who don't vote actually pay the fine because they produce a valid or sufficient reason not to pay the fine. And I think if we had a similar system in the UK, then only a small percentage
of people... So what's the point of making it compulsory if you can get out of the compulsion?
Because you provide a valid or sufficient reason not to vote.
Well, like
because,
I don't like voting.
No, you're being asked to engage. You're being asked to be involved.
People don't have to engage if they don't want to.
Then where are we?
This is as bad as the government's proposal.
What's the value and strength of our democracy in our country?
But this is as bad as the proposal by the government to put the BBC first on YouTube. It's about brainwashing people into doing what the state wants rather than allowing individuals freedom. It's fundamentally anti-freedom.
It's not about the state. It's about the relationship between people.
We're going to have to go to Patrick Christie's. I'm so sorry to cut you off. We could argue about this all day. I think it's a dreadful idea and fundamentally antithetic to freedom. Anyway, that's all from me.